ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. You either make excuses or you choose to level up. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. Woo! Woo! Brandon Britton here.
Appreciate you having me here today, man.
It's that kind of discernment, that kind of focus, that kind of forward thinking that's so important if you're going to succeed in business today.
Jeff and I are like friends. We're real friends.
We are and so you unlock fortune and freedom without all the stress that normally comes along with it.
It all comes down to your why. Your business, why are you doing it? How is it going to change the world and what's it going to do for your family?
I want you to celebrate your success.
Talk about the struggle. But I promise you, the story is in your struggle.
They'll never be able to say that about me because people only see me working hard at anything that I'm doing whenever they see me.
Focused on your success and the success of those around you.
But being that constant in your community, good or bad, whether things are great in the community, bad in the community, who's steady?
Unapologetically do business and life on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. And we discuss how they do it and the big ticket methods they use. The things that make your life successful so you do life and business on your terms.
In and of itself, the only limitations that we really have on ourselves is the ones that we allow to be put on ourselves. And most people don't look at it in that perspective.
There's nothing wrong with being humble, but there's also nothing wrong with stepping into your superpower and letting people know who you are.
Get ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. All right. Well, today's episode's a special one because my guest, Mike Capuzzi, was my original marketing mentor, still is a marketing mentor. He was my very first coach. When I decided to tune into the world of direct response marketing, grew to a friendship, became business partners. And Mike is really a leader as it relates to many things, but specifically today, we're going to be talking about his thought leadership, his trailblazing in regards to books, as he calls them, shooks, really kind of any kind of authoritative printed material that really puts you in a position of authority. That's what he really gets down on and likes to help people with. And for me, books are, and these kinds of materials are a key ingredient to growth assets, which is just one of many big ticket methods and methodologies that I like to talk about, especially if your goal is to get into that investor seat in your business. Mike, welcome to the show. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. And I think you probably will have to edit that intro because we should say you went from a high value client in our business, paying us a lot of money to now, I think I pay you money or something. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. And I'm glad it did because as you mentioned, I think, our friendship is strong. And, I think in a lot of respects, we hold each other accountable to a lot of different things. So I'm looking forward to it. It's awesome to see what you've done with this show.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking in the background about what you're doing on your podcast show, what I'm doing on mine, and the reasons we do it. On that note, I mean, we got podcast listeners. This is what I do on my show. I kind of take immediate left turns.
Wouldn't expect less.
Right. So your show, you record using Zoom. You're very knowledgeable when it comes to the technical aspects of things. Whereas for me, I pay the dumb tax. And I use great people like Chris. You can get a hold of Chris, castahead.net. I use folks like him because I just don't have the ability to sit and figure this stuff out, the technical stuff. But you're an engineer mind. So you're doing your show on Zoom. You're pushing it out to audio. What are some things that you've done with your show that you really like, that kind of bring listeners in and bring guests and get people attracted to being a guest on your show?
Well, probably not enough, Jeff. I mean, I always sort of, think I could be doing more. I think most, marketing oriented business owners that, guys like you and me and gals that we interact with, I think think they could be doing more. And I know I can. As a matter of fact, just within the last hour of us going live today, I just reached out to a pretty well-known person in the marketing space. He has a new book coming out in the next month, and I just did a personal invite to my podcast. So you have those one-off personal invites. I'm at the point kind of like where you're at. I mean, I don't have to search for guests. We get guest requests all the time. We only have book authors on our show, nonfiction book authors. But I'm also a part of an organization or a software as a service business called Podmatch, which you are too. And Podmatch has brought me some great guests. I've been on some great shows. It's think of it like a dating app for podcasters and podcast guests. So that alone has been more than enough to fill. I mean, we are full on my show till almost the end of the year, but I'm still handpicking, key people. And I think one of the next things I really want to do, Jeff, is, and you might even be doing this, is really, having like a top 10, high-end VIP, hard to get kind of guest on the show.
Yeah, like a dream list.
Yeah,
dream guest list.
And I really ought to be doing that. And I think it's something but you got to play that game of waiting and rejection and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, something to get around to. But I think I definitely want to have some, New York Times type authors just to sprinkle in with our Main Street authors and our, worldwide authors.
Yep. Yeah, I very much like that tactic. For me, I've enjoyed Podmatch. You introduced it to me. So it's a unique service in the fact that there's a subscription model. There's, hosts and guests can get paid, as I understand it. And I've just kind of dove in and, my intentional, and that's the thing about you, Mike, is you are extremely intentional, which relates to books and authority material. We'll get on that in a minute, but I've been intentional in who I book on the show, and I've really spent time looking and listening, to the samples that they give. And for me, I'm booked through right now, confirmed through mid-October. But what that's done in communicating with those that have reached out since is I share that, and in a way, it's kind of like self-selected. I've had a few people say, "Well, I'm kind of newer, maybe I'm not ready for your show," which was interesting, and that wasn't at all the position I was going for. But it is an angle for having a quality show, because we want, as hosts, we always want our listeners to get value from what we deliver. So, on the note of being intentional, right? So this is like the whole theme of why you write a book. So, obviously, there's intention that people have when wanting to go after a book, have it as part of their marketing arsenal. Why do you feel books are so important? Why are they that keystone for successfully marketing your business and service?
Well, I mean, firsthand why, because you've authored several books, written several books. I mean, there's so many ways to attack that question, Jeff. I'll go back to the fact that most of us are used to paying for books. So whereas most marketing material, we're not paying for brochures, we're not paying for business cards, we're not necessarily paying for YouTube videos or even podcasts to consume them. Whereas books, for the most part, have been something that people are used to buying. So they're right from the very outset of a book. And I'm talking print books, to show one of your books, if you will. These are books that you could hold in your hand. Obviously, there's, digital versions and such, audio versions sometimes. But just by the very fact that most of us have grown up, there's been libraries, there's, in school, there's, bookstores still, obviously Amazon. Books are, typically an investment. And by that very nature, it sort of changes the perception for most people on the book itself, and then the person whose name is, on the cover as author. So, and Jeff, you probably recall this because it was something you and I worked on together a couple of years ago, but in the mattress retail space. But in doing some research for that project, I found, ironically, in the mattress industry, a book being used as early as like 1901, a book called The Test of Time, published by a mattress company of all things, offered as a free book in the advertising. You and I shared, we shared those ads. And that's over 100 years ago, with this idea of using a book-centric marketing strategy for lead generation, for getting out there, for elevating the author's place in business. It's just a proven formula. And 100 plus years later, I don't care if social media is bigger and all that stuff, it hasn't changed. Now, maybe some of the ways we use it have, but still, being a book author of a quality book is still very meaningful.
Yeah. And the Test of Time book, I was kind of peeking around my office here because I have a bunch of marketing examples. That one I have downstairs in my downstairs office. But if you Google it, you'll see what we're talking about. And, you think 121 years ago or so, how much more difficult was it to publish a book? And yet here was a business at the turn of the century in the industrial age when, we had our population was just exploding. They chose to dig in on sleep and wellness improvement. And that was the whole concept of the book. They weren't selling a mattress. They were selling a better, more productive, healthier life. And it was a lot harder to produce then than it is today.
Yeah. And they used it for years, Jeff. I don't know if you remember, but this thing was not like
decades.
A shining, literally decades. And you're right. Someone took it because it was, it's in the public domain and basically republished it. And it's actually, I think if you Google the Test of Time, it's the Ostermore, I think Ostermore Mattress Company has a whole website dedicated showing like original photos and all. It's kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah. It's a very neat case study in marketing, and that there's rarely are there new things under the sun. But that doesn't mean you can't use them. It means you can model it for your own success. So I said in the intro, books and shooks. So let's talk about that. What is the power of a short book, or a shook as you've coined it?
Well, so let me take one step back, and we call them a shook, a short, helpful book. That's our brand. So, McDonald's and Burger King both make hamburgers, but one's got the Big Mac, one's got the Whopper. A lot of people publish books, but only Mike Capuzzi and Bite Size Books publishes shooks. And Jeff, I say that kind of, with a smile on my face, but there's a real marketing lesson there, right? Something that you've obviously applied in your retail business. You've got to be unique. You've got to be different. Obviously, there's a ton of mattress retailers in your area. How does Gardner stand out? And you stand out by doing a lot of things exceptionally well, uniquely different. And that's what a shook is. So a shook is a short, helpful book, about a 1 hour read, Jeff, as you well know, because you've published several shooks. And this 1 hour promise, I think, is really important in this day and age. Obviously, there is a time and place for your traditional 200 or 300 page business book. But if you're looking to get highly focused and be able to allow readers, and again, we're talking nonfiction, typically business-oriented content, the promise of a 1 hour read where I can read it cover to cover in an hour, like I always say, you can get on the plane in New York City, and by the time you're in Chicago, you're done the shook. That's strong. Like, that's a big promise. It gives the person who's reading it the sense of accomplishment. Hopefully, it gets them motivated to take that next step with you, the author. So from a reader's perspective, really important. And then for you, the writer, the content creator, rather than taking a year, 2 years, sometimes even more to write a traditional book, you can knock these out in a matter of weeks. So it's a, I didn't necessarily develop the short book format. There's a lot of famous short books out there, but I do have a pretty unique format we use for our authors, based in direct response marketing.
You've certainly picked up the ball and run with it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I mean, I've got a whole stack here of stuff right here, and this is just all the short stuff. There's 9 of them here, but I think in the bio, when you sent that in, it was like 15 books. And I know there's others from years gone past, and I have those downstairs too. And that's the thing. Like, we don't throw this stuff away. I mean, I know Mike, like, I know all this stuff. I don't want to say like the back of my hand, because I'm not him, but I know Mike's stuff. And there's really not a lot of reason for me to personally hang on to it, because I'm a tremendous student of his, and all that stuff. I've had opportunities to take first looks at stuff he's published, but you hang on to books. People do hang on to them. I'm looking at my library now, and I've been very focused locally on our youth and getting youth more time in school around skills and careers and business. And it dawns on me, I've got all this stuff. I've got all these newsletters.
Yeah.
If I can organize it and donate it to the library, that's so much more of a better value than donating it to Goodwill, where it pains me because I know these valuable resources are going to be sold for 25 cents, or maybe tossed, which I just can't do. So people value books, to go back to a point you made a few minutes ago, for sure. I also like the 1 hour promise. I think it's smart for marketers and you're very smart to put that out there. So many times, I am guilty of this. I dump on people, right? So the 1 hour promise, I think, is real smart, to where people can plug it into their day. Like if they have a time where they sit on their back porch, and that's an hour long. Well, you as a marketer could call out, hey, this is great to use in these moments, right? To digest your stuff, whether that's a book, a video series, whatever. So,
well, if I can
really
jump
like
in,
that.
Jeff,
Absolutely.
going back to your point of intention, right? So one of the things that differentiates what we do for our clients is we are very, very focused on intention. We're not helping people write that memoir, or if they want to be this New York Times bestseller. We are crafting short books that are intentionally, very specific in their intentions, which is to get that small percentage of readers, from reader to customer or client or whatever it is, student, member, whatever you have in your business. And they're very intentional with that. We follow a very specific direct response formula that I've created and honed over the years in our short books. But I think your word of intention is so critical here, because we want, again, as you and I both know, there's always a small percentage of readers who are going to want more from the book author. And most authors make the mistake of not giving that pathway. They do not instruct or show interested readers what to do next if they are still interested in working with you. So, for example, and not to make this all about you, but it is your show, your shook Sleep Better. Okay,
Right.
so it's a great little short book that you're using in your Main Street business to help people who want to sleep better. Very great focus, great promise. But in here, you are being very intentional about what you want interested readers to do. And there's pathways in the book for interested readers to take: come to the store, get more information, etc. So, you starting off today's episode with this concept of intention, I think, is really key.
Yeah. Well, I think in this day and age of marketing, there's a meme that comes to mind. It's the Gordon Ramsay meme. And we sometimes curse on this show. So if you know the meme, the slogan is that it's also fucking bad. And he's just like looking at this plate of food that's left a bad taste in his mouth. And I think when you look at marketing today, to the Ostermore example, look how hard it was to publish a book 100 plus years ago, versus look how easy it is to publish a book today relative to the solutions that are available. I'm not saying book authorship should be easy and sloppy and fast, but relative, it is far easier. Today, there's so much technology that just enables people to become whatever they say, because there are apps, there are softwares, there are all kinds of things in your back pocket. As an example, my business partner Ben and I, we just interviewed this morning a VA, a graphic design, video editing VA, to work with us, actually to carve out snippets of this show. Again, intentionally, I know people don't always tune into an hour-long show, but I want to get more from all of it. And what I want to do is take those snippets out and be able to bring people in micro doses for both of the podcast shows that I do. And I share this because 3 out of the 4 candidates, it was obvious they weren't as intentional in their craft. And they were able to say they did these things, but when pressed, you quickly peeled back. Well, they've done some app type stuff, but they really don't have the skills and abilities to pull off what we want to do. And I think people need to really kind of get back to a place of recommitting to things that are foundational. So on that note, you believe, I know you believe this, books and shooks and these kinds of materials are foundational to a business. So what things have you seen happen in yours or your clients that have changed the business as a result of having a shook or a book, this process in the business?
Yeah. Well, as much as I like to say, it's sort of a magic button or an easy button, and you just write a book and your whole life changes, and that can't happen. I mean, there are obviously a lot of examples of someone writing a book and then next thing they know they're world famous. That's not typically who we are working with. I mean, we're working with Main Street business owners, we're working with worldwide business owners, people online, etc. So it's a bit of a different aspiration. So typically, Jeff, people who are writing the books that we're publishing for them, they are looking for more ideal customers. Again, clients, students, members,
Right.
whatever they call them in their business. So they're looking for basically another way to generate leads that they can follow up with and market to. So there's the traditional lead generation value of a book, which is you can't not go on Facebook and see someone promoting their next book coming out on a book funnel. You'll still see it on TV. I still see free books offered on TV commercials. So there's that benefit of really being an important marketing asset for one's business. The other thing that's important is what it does for you, the author, and what it can do for you as far as raising your level of influence. In this day and age, even though it has become a lot easier, the percentage of people that are still writing books, Jeff, is still infinitesimal, relative to the whole population. But it's a lot. Like anything, marketers screw everything up, and one of the things they screw up is everyone can publish a book, and do it quickly, and a lot of times they're kind of crappy. So we're not talking about that either. But if you craft a quality book that does help people, it can really change how people perceive you. If you're out speaking, you're on a podcast, you're at events. People don't ask you to autograph a business card or a brochure, but they will ask you to autograph your book.
Right.
And that's a very real game changer for the person who embraces it.
Yeah. On the topic of authority, so one thing that we're really working on in our business as marketers, we could talk about maybe the Moxie Cola story, because it's timely for the time we're recording this. What's today? June 28th of 2022. So, economically here in the United States, we're looking at some severe headwinds, it looks like, in front of us. Maybe in your business, if you're a mortgage lender, you're already seeing that. You've been living it in the real estate world, because there's like a fraction of the houses that were on the market. And even though that's gone up as of recent, it's still a fraction of what is normal inventory. So in our business, we're looking for ways to continuously market ourselves. And one of those ways is through Help a Reporter Out. And I'm realizing there's all these queries for sleep, wellness, health improvement around the topic of sleep. However, some of those queries, about half of them, come and they want a requisite of being a doctor, a chiropractor, a medical related professional. However, what no one has asked for, that I believe is a benefit, and that I believe when we continue to submit our responses to these requests, if we started out with Jeff Janakovo, the author of the book Sleep Better, while not a doctor, still felt it important for you to know X, Y, and Z, as found on page 23 of his book, right? And yep, some of them are going to get tossed immediately, but others are going to turn the head, and then others were going to get picked up. There'll be no doubt in my mind, because again, authorship equals authority. So I think it's important for people right now to really look at ways to dig in. So I'll let you kind of pick up on that. And then if you want, we can talk about the Moxie Cola story if you want.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of a cliche, but the word authority starts by being an author, right? Author,
Mhm.
authority. Um, so it is important, I think, for any business owner, Main Street retail, Main Street dentist, Main Street insurance, physician, global CEO. I think it's important. And this, this idea of, and again, Jeff, you well know this, book writing, book publishing, book marketing, it's not a short term, do it today, I'm done tomorrow, and I don't have to worry about it again, right? It is a
Right.
long term play, as in years. You've got
Yep.
books here that you've written, 6, 7 years ago,
Yep.
that can still be working for you. Now, again, you have to do consistent, persistent marketing with it and promotion of it. But if you do that, it's an asset that can pay off and have profitable results for years. So, I can't imagine too many types of business owners, online, offline, that could not benefit from leveraging a book and a book-centric marketing strategy. So, to your point of Moxie Cola, which is probably a name not a lot of people are familiar with, and there's good reason why. But and I wrote an article about this. It's somewhere on my blog, but I think it was like in the 1920s, 1930s, Jeff, like Moxie Cola.
Prior to the Depression, yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
the number one soft drink, cola, in the United States, and it was everybody knew Moxie Cola, and I believe it was right around the time of the Depression in the 30s. They saw what was happening out there, and they started, instead of embracing it. Oh, there's Chris. Thanks, Chris. They started to shrink. Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. What are we going to do? We got to hunker down. And one of their competitors at the time did the exact opposite. And that competitor was Coca-Cola. So fast forward, whatever, almost 100 years, who do we remember? I think Moxie Cola is still out there. I think, matter of fact, Moxie Cola was recently, in the last few years, purchased by Coca-Cola. And the story is one of, when things are getting rough, as you mentioned, these headwinds, it's, it takes some balls, it takes some cojones, it takes some really, battening down the hatches. But if you can embrace it and double down on your promotion and marketing efforts, and let all the other companies and business owners sort of shrivel up on the side, you'll be standing that test of time.
Yeah. Well, it really doesn't become a gamble. It doesn't become a will of, how big of stones you have or don't have, right? Because when you've done a good job of putting forth quality content and putting it in front of the right person, what you're really doing in a time of uncertainty is creating massive assurance that you're the right fit. And in good times and bad, money will be spent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a reality. You have to work harder at it. And why not have this lever of a book in the gumbo that should be your marketing, right? Like, why not have it be the big piece that makes people say, yeah, this is the place for me. They have the solutions I'm looking for.
Right. Well, I mean, you and I are both gun enthusiasts, so to leverage a gun metaphor, if you will, it's a bullet in the gun, if in your marketing, your marketing gun, your sales gun, your business promotion gun, if you will, and it can, it has a lot of potential, but just like a gun, you got to fire it in order for it, to hit the target. I think having it as a center piece, as a keystone for a lot of businesses can be really smart. And as you mentioned earlier, once it's done, there are so many ways you can leverage it in unique ways, so that you're really, really valuing the asset that you've created and really monetizing it across the board. So,
yeah. I mean, we constantly look for new ways to use a book, which again, I would challenge everybody listening. And by the way, just another little podcasting kind of left turn or pull off. Chris, fantastic producer. You really should pay attention to the shows that he produces, because when we were talking about that Moxie Cola story, if you're listening on the audio aspect of this, he brought it onto the screen. And again, being intentional about what my viewers, my listeners get and see is important to me. Because this is like TV. So it should feel and look like it. And, the quality of the experience, again, going back to the book, is so important. So one thing that I know you've had conversations with your clients about, and maybe other people that have considered working with you or that you've talked about on other shows, is the author factor, to plug your show, right? So you have the show called the Author Factor Podcast, which is a great show. But being the author of your book, so there's a number of ways to accomplish this, right? You can write it 100% on your own. You can have it ghost written. You can have it kind of be manufactured where it's a co-production. And I know at times you've shared that people are uneasy about the purity of being an author, and there's hangups around what is or isn't considered a book. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things you're kind of referring to, but let's take it from one that is a very common reaction for a lot of people is, I'm not smart enough, I'm not a good enough writer, who am I to quote write a book? And that to me is a lot of head trash that a lot of people have. I always like to, say, hey, listen, or ask them, are you helping people in your business? Are you, speaking to them face to face? Are you doing trainings? Are you, writing a blog or whatever? Most business owners, corporate executives do help people. And if they do help people, then in my opinion, they can write a short, helpful book. They may not be able to write a New York Times bestseller and all that good stuff, or a book that, is going to change the world necessarily. But that's not the intention of these, right?
Right.
The intention is to change one person's world, not the entire world. So like in your case with Sleep Better, if you can help one person, let's say, every day who's read your book, get a better night's sleep, that's a success for you. In what you were intending to do. So the first thing I'd sort of want to just squash is the head trash of I'm not a good enough writer. Again, there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of people that can help you be a better writer. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, Jeff. And then the other thing is, you're right. There are some purists. You and I are marketers, right? Shooks are direct response marketing books. What does that mean? There's a lot of intentional things that go into a shook. The way they look, the fonts we use, the way we really there's been a lot of intention, visible and invisible, in how we structure these things, the flow, the format. So some purists might say, well, that's not a real book. It's, but again, that's not our intention, right? Our intention is to provide about a 1-hour read on a focused topic to help specific readers fix a specific problem or achieve a specific goal. So again, it all starts, Jeff, with knowing right from the outset what the goals are. And, we're very clear on what our goals are with these short, helpful books.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say, I knew I was an author when I passed what I called the grandma test. So before I had my little buyer's guides, right, which were more pamphlets than books, right? But I called it a book because no one else was doing it at the time. Like these original little buyer's guides, right? Kind of real thin. I'll put it up to the camera. Like it kind of disappears if I get it completely vertical. Well, when Sleep Better came out, it's got a spine, sits on the shelf. It's a book. And when I showed that to my grandmother, she's like, well, now you're an author. Whereas before it's like, well, Grandma, I had my book. No, that wasn't a book. She called that a pamphlet. And, so, I mean, in a way that is a good test. Like, the people who love you most, when they don't mince the words, it is a test. It is a way to look at it, for sure. So you've talked about being intentional. You've talked about your process. Let's kind of dig into that. Like, why have you chosen this model? Obviously, you're somebody who believes in giving back value. So Talk about the value of your process and what it does for businesses.
Well, again, the value is, first of all, the kind of book we're going to publish for our clients. You know, a 1-hour read. I wrote a book. I saw the graphic earlier, the 100-page book. You're going to have about a 100-page book. And that 100-page book, again, very intentional. It's about a 1-hour read for, there you go, Jeff. You know, it's about a 1-hour read for the average reader. It's thick enough that we can have text on the spine so it appears like a real book. It's sitting up on a bookshelf. So that's the kind of book. And again, it follows a very specific formula. I mean, another thing Jeff and I have in common is we're of Italian descent. We've got that vowel at the end of our name. And Jeff and I have partaked in a few meals together over the years. So we enjoy a quality meal. And Jeff, I don't even know if you've heard the story. I think I did write about it in a 100-page book. But I had an Italian grandmother, and she was a phenomenal cook. And you know, she used to have these little recipe cards that I wish I had gotten, you know, after she passed away. But shooks follow a very specific recipe. You know, I've alluded to that several times. So, in how they're structured. So, again, I think that's the first key thing, is the kind of book we're going to help people craft. The second thing that's really unique is that I work directly with all my clients, one-on-one, just like you and I are doing right now. And you know this because you've participated. You've been a client. And that's key. I'm at the point in my career where I don't shy away from that. I want to do that. This is what I like doing. So I apply 20 plus years of experience to every one of my clients' books and book marketing strategies. And I have a very unique process they work through. And if they do everything I instruct and do it in a timely basis, in about 8 to 12 weeks, they will have a shook that they can use in their business.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen it happen. And, you know, on that note, your business career and the intensity, the tenacity, veracity, however you want to describe it, of Mike Capuzzi out there in the space of marketing and client attraction has ebbed and flowed over the years. But I'm pretty sure I could answer my own question for you. The thing that has kept you at the forefront has been what's right over your shoulder. I mean, 15 books, right? I mean, they've been that cornerstone piece.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I think even the more fundamental one is this. It's a value added first mentality. As you well know, right? I do aim to give a lot of value in everything I do. And I think that's been the true cornerstone. And then on top of that are books and different things. Yeah.
But I mean, you are living what I would call a big ticket life, you know, certainly successful, but share with people watching and listening, like, the life that you've created for yourself, for your family, as a result of marketing and being a marketer. What has that allowed you to do?
Yeah, it's not something I necessarily embrace enough. And you've actually, you've paused me at times and said, dude, just like, look what you've done. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. It's been a culmination of a lot of things over a lot of years, with a lot of input from a lot of people that you and I both know and respect. Accountability partners like you've been to me, and et cetera. So it's gotten me to a point, Jeff, where I pretty much, not pretty much, I 100% live life on my terms. I work with who I want, when I want, how I want. I've got a very awesome, blessed life that I live, and I'm very thankful. And it doesn't necessarily mean I have a jet out in the back here, or 5 homes. That's not my definition of what is ideal to me.
Right.
And I just think, and that's what I love about what you're doing with the show and the whole thing that you're doing now about trying to help others achieve this by bringing on guests and talking about this. But I think it's important. I think it's at this point in my life, because I'm, a little more advanced in years than you are, there are things that I'm willing to do, that I want to do. And then there's a clear delineation of what I'm not willing to do and what I won't do and who I don't want to do it with. And I think that's pretty cool when you get to that spot. And if I could advise anybody, I've got two daughters in college, and they have boyfriends and stuff like that. One is already in his own business at 21, almost 22, I think now. And I'm always advising him, like, the ultimate goal is to be able to live life on the terms as you define it. And I think that's what everyone needs to keep in mind.
I know you're a fan of this boyfriend. To a degree, it's still your daughter's boyfriend.
Yeah, he's still a boy.
He's got a maybe you can get some extra points if we'll put Chris on the spot. What's his website?
I think it's NDFNathanDavidFabrication.com.
ND Fabrication. Well, maybe we'll get it up. Maybe
if you Google, he's out there. He does have a website.
Yeah.
He is a craftsman. And Jeff, I know you appreciate this.
Yeah.
You
that's why I mentioned
trades,
it.
right? You appreciate the trades. Yep. This guy is amazing. He's built hot rods. I mean, he's 21. There you go. Yeah. ND, is that? Let me make sure that's him. Yeah. I don't know if that's him or not, Chris. I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't think that was him, but anyway,
that looks pretty. Yeah, Nathan David Fillion is Nate Fillion, but anyway, he's out there. But to see a young guy, to your point earlier, right, about mastering your craft, whatever that craft is. In his case, it's fabrication. That looks closer. Yep. Is pretty cool. And he makes, there you go. That's his, Chris. He makes some really amazing things. Some things that aren't that amazing because they're so industrial, but he is a true, he's a true craftsman. And if you're in the Pennsylvania area, the Southeast Pennsylvania area, he makes the most awesome fire pits. So definitely give a shout out to Nate.
Yeah. Well, you'll get some brownie points.
I don't know if I need brownie points, Jeff. I don't think the father has to have brownie points.
Well, I mean, maybe he gives you a discount on a fire pit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what that discount should be. Trust me. That discount is 100%.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I think words and actions are two very different things. And this is one of my core values: actions first, words second. And like for me to think about putting Chris on the spot to bring up Nathan, to highlight him, like that wasn't planned, obviously. But it's important for me because I recognize the skill. I recognize the career he's built for himself. And if I have the moment to build somebody up, even for albeit a short amount of time, I'm going to do it. And it's one of my core values.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another one of the core values is helping people build their own foundation for success. So taking the few minutes we have here to talk about Nathan's successes and showcase it to others, as small of a platform as I have in this world right now, so what? We're going to do it. And, there it is, NathanDavidFabrication.com.
Yeah.
This video will live so long as all the servers remain up, and he can share it out, and that's that. But, these are the things I believe in. And if you're a business owner, you're looking for something to say, there you go. Who you are and how you serve is something to talk about. Is it not?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, I would say how you uniquely serve them, and wrapping that up in examples. So is it okay if I put Chris on the spot, Jeff? Chris is up for the task. So Chris, if you go to my Facebook page, because we just posted it this morning. And again, it's the same sort of context of what you're saying, Jeff. So there's a client. He's our oldest client, Jeff. He's almost 85 years old.
Oh, I saw that this
just
morning.
Just published a shook. Yep.
And
85. And I tried to talk him out of it. His name's John. I'm like, John, he lives in San Diego. I'm like, and he's a retired dentist. And I could not talk him out of doing another book. This is his second book. The first one with us, but he's on our. I put a picture of him holding his book, but I again share that as an example of what you're saying, right? Of is it It should be. Or you know what, Chris, you're probably not friends with me. It wasn't a public post. Oh well. But you showed it on my testimonial page. We put it up on our testimonial page that you had earlier, Chris, with the rolling authors. But again, Jeff, my point there
he is.
There's John, 85, almost
85 years old,
and still like, still just grinding it out and trying to help others. I had to do a shout out. I mean, how can you not love a guy that is 85 years old trying to help people understand the power of solar energy? And he's not looking to lighten up. So yeah, I think it's important for showing, how you help others and doing it.
Yep. Yeah. So as we kind of come to the top of our time together, so we've worked together around Sleep Better, authoring Sleep Better, bringing that forward, but we brought it forward in a very unique way. We brought it forward, really kind of building that investor seat around the book first, because Sleep Better was really kind of designed. If I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit and give some inside baseball, we designed that to be a licensed item to the retail mattress and furniture industry, to make other mattress retailers be authorities in their own market. And you've done this a handful of times. So let's talk about that, because I think that might be the thing that can push an enterprising mind over the edge, that if they have opportunity to help, not just make money, but truly help their industry, their vertical that they're in. And I'm looking at what was the gentleman's name that's 85 that wrote the solar book?
John Cunningham.
John. So the Apex group that I'm a part of, there's a ton of solar guys in there. They could be John's great grandsons, quite honestly, because they're in their early 20s to like late 20s, at least grandson. And, all the things they're doing are great. There's no doubt they've built a machine online with digital media. I'm not going to argue that. But the plus factor, when everybody else is doing digital media only, the plus factor of laying a solar book in front of your prospects is incredible. So like, if John's the guy that's not going to stop, he might think about that. But let's talk about the licensing model behind your book, because I know you've done that a few times.
Yeah. So it's a very unique side of our publishing business. It's a very profitable side of our publishing business. And in a nutshell, what the idea behind it is, Jeff, is when you have a subject matter expert like Jeff Giannakovo on how to sleep better, that subject matter expert writes a book, and typically it's a book that he or she is using in his or her own business. Okay, so you obviously use it in your Gardener's Mattress and More business. That is again a very valuable asset, and it's has a lot of appeal for other independent mattress retailers, in your case, around the country, who love the idea of being a book author, but just for whatever reason, some of that head trash we talked about earlier, they just don't have the time, whatever, they're not ready to write that book. Yeah. So the idea is we've created a book that can be customized, we call it more like personalized, to other people in that niche, again, in your case, mattress retailers, and we allow them to license it on an area exclusive basis, meaning that, two people in two towns next door to each other can't have it necessarily. And it really does a fast track of allowing these people to personalize the book. Their information is in it, their stories in it, but the crux, the main matter of the book doesn't change unless it's needed to. And it allows them to have a book and all the book marketing assets that we've created for them very quickly, very efficiently, and a lot of times very cost effectively. For the subject matter expert, again, in the case of you and I, our joint venture, it's a very profitable model because we can license it around the country, around the world, maybe. We didn't do that, of course, but and it allows us to, create an asset that can be licensed in an annual license context. And it's a pretty neat program that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason these models are successful is because money loves speed. You have a path of 8 to 12 weeks to become your own author, but in 8 to 12 days, if you sit down and again, Mike is, I mean, you're very intentional in the way you build the support around the licensable
Yeah.
book. or
It's
shook.
literally hours, Jeff, as you, yeah, again,
Yeah.
you know, it's a couple hours and
Yeah. I was more like kind of talking about having artwork back and
yeah, getting it
you know,
to them and all
getting
that.
the first
But
sample shipped,
it's
etc.
quick.
Yeah.
And listen, the fact of the matter is, this goes back to that squeamish thing you talked about earlier. You know, some people say, "Oh, I didn't write the book." Well, you know, I always say, listen, the book is meant to help people get the spotlight off of you and what you haven't done or should have done or whatever. It's meant to help people, again, in your case, to have a better night's sleep. And if you don't do it, they're not going to get that necessarily. So, you know, and most business, no, not most, a lot of business books are ghost written. Ghostwriting is a very common thing. It's nothing to be afraid of. And you're right, money loves speed. So, you know, sitting there thinking about a book that you're going to write and maybe write, and then it takes 2 years to write versus, you know, in a month having it and that, you know, being out there using it, there's no comparison in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm digging into Alex Hormozy's book, $100 Million Offer, right? And I'm reading it and I'm seeing all these dog whistles of other marketers, right? And this is not a knock on Alex at all. This is a statement of you listening, watching, get over your own head trash about, I don't have value. I don't have a lot to say, because there's a lot of references in his book about other greats. You know, we said nothing new under the sun, right? He talks about Dan Kennedy in that book. I've seen a little bit of Frank Kern influence in that book, a little bit of Russell Brunson. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you get paid for the information and the way you accumulate it and present it to the person in front of you. And ultimately, if you're better at doing that than the next person, you win. You know, I mean, look at all of the big tech successes that aggregate cars in spare rooms in people's houses. You know, Hilton's spinning in his grave. He had to own property and employees. Airbnb makes hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars a year, and they don't own anything. They just were better at organizing the desire to get a vacation in easily in a fun place. So as a book author, like, just really think about a potential book author, really think about the reality that if you can win prospects day to day, face to face, you can win them in print. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just, you're changing the media. That's all it is. It's a media position change, which so many people get confused on nowadays.
I agree. I definitely agree. And, you know, I think if you can, again, if you can get out of your own space of how you think a mattress retailer, a physician, a dentist, an insurance agent, whatever it is, should act and should behave and how they're supposed to be perceived, and really figure out unique ways that you can change that. Again, in the context of being helpful, authentic, integrity-based, all that. Yeah, you're definitely going to be one of the winners.
Yeah. 100%. Mike, this has been a pleasure, man. It was very fun to have you on the show. I liked when I saw the booking come across. I'm like, oh, this is like the grasshopper. What's that saying about the grasshopper and the master? I always butcher these sayings, but like people, I think people know. They're like, well, Jeff, this is what you meant to say.
Regardless, it's like passing the baton. How's that?
Right.
Something like that.
Right. Exactly. Well, this has been fun. I'm looking very much forward to, you know, talking about big ticket life. Mike and I will be getting up to my campsite for sure. On a midweek day, and phones won't be ringing and fires won't be happening, but we'll be hanging out, smoking cigars, drinking some bourbon, cooking some amazing food, because we're in that investor seat in our businesses. We've kind of made the moves and realized that our businesses need to work for us. And both of us have enjoyed that fact because we both have books working all the time. And man, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed it. So if people want to get more of Mike Capuzzi, and they absolutely positively should, I think you shared something for people who listen, but how else do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is showing my main website that's been around forever, MikeCapuzzi.com. Our publishing website is bitesizedbooks.com. And the authorfactor.com is my podcast.
Okay. Very good. Well, there you go. Authorfactor.com, MikeCapuzzi.com, or bitesizedbooks.com. If we've so inspired you to, in this hour, write a 1-hour book, you should definitely go there. And Mike does have a little something for you listening.
Yeah.
Go to MikeCapuzzi.com. See, I'm doing the work for you there.
Well, we have a hidden link there, but if you go to MikeCapuzzi.com, there's 3 shooks that you can read online for free, Jeff.
/magic.
You're probably in a couple of them, but as far as being sort of featured, but yeah, MikeCapuzzi.com /magic.
Yeah, you'll unlock some bonuses there that Mike has for you. Mike, it's been a joy, man. Looking forward to seeing you in person up at the campsite. We'll definitely kick back and talk about a bunch of different stuff: books, marketing, life, bourbon, cigars, you name it. We'll have fun.
All right, Jeff. Hey, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Big Ticket Life. Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of The Big Ticket Life. You've heard from another amazing guest living their own big ticket life, and now it's time to live yours. First, I'd love for you to take me up on my free gift to you. Claim your gift at gift.thebigticketlife.live. That's gift.thebigticketlife.live. See, all your life you've been told what is and what isn't possible by the loudest voices from the cheapest seats. It's time to finally do life and business on your terms. Sure, you've heard similar things, but without clarity on what can be done, it's easy to have your customers, employees, maybe even partners, and your spouse keep you from truly living a big ticket life. My big ticket methods shift you into that investor seat in your business, away from commodity and away from competition, into a market of one, so you can finally live your own big ticket life. So my gift to you is for you to book your discovery call today, where we'll uncover first the Chivo behaviors, those chief everything officer behaviors that hold you back, and why moving into the investor seat in your own business is critical. 2, we'll uncover the premium position that's up for grabs right now in your market that you're missing out on. And 3, which big ticket methodologies are just waiting to be dropped into your business to explode your sales and profits. So again, thanks for listening to this episode. I'd love for you to take action right now. Accept this gift. Book your call. Go to gift.thebigticketlife.live. Again, that's gift.thebigticketlife.live.